Alright, Mark, we're going to do day 2 and 3 together here in this YouTube clip. This one, we had John Holland, who is a negotiator for the union. He was very, very informative. He does this bullshit stuff, and he doesn't sugarcoat things. And I appreciate his attitude, because he's tough. That's, in my opinion, what you need to be when you discuss negotiations upon a contract. The first point that we have here is build upon contracts. I was very short-sighted in the fact that I think about negotiating for the next 5 years, but his whole point here with this don't be short-sighted thing is if you build, you get the foundation in place and you build from there. And that's really good, because you don't think about the next 3 years, the next 5 years. It's, if I get something in place now, the second negotiations in 5 years down the road, you just continue from on that path that you already started. He did point out that you don't negotiate what you already have. You put things on the table, because if you already have it, why would you give that up? You're not trying to lose things. He did this thing where he had this board, and he says, I want A, give me B, C, D, T, whatever. It was just a bunch of letters. And he says, who thinks that I did a good job? He said, I got A, but I gave up 4 things. And he says, and I got B, and I gave up 5 things. And I got C and gave up 6 things. And I'm sitting there in the lecture hall, and I said, I think you did a good job. And I raised my hand for it. He says, who thinks you did a bad job? And people raised their hand and said, well, you gave up too many things. He says, letters don't mean anything. Letters are irrelevant. And from a negotiation standpoint, it made sense to me. And I was proud of myself in the fact that I saw it, because in his mind, there were 3 main issues that he wanted. He brought them to the table. He set them down. He says, I got 40 things here. And he says, oh, he tricked the district into believing that they were winning when actually they weren't. Because the bottom line was, he had 3 things, 3 goals that he wanted accomplished, wanted met, whatever, and he got those 3 things. But in their mind, they said, man, he really hosed these guys. And it was great. It really was, and I took that to heart. One chief. You can't have many people running the show. You need one lead negotiator. He pointed that out because, as I say here in my notes, one voice is clear, concise, keeps everyone on the same page. Because once everyone starts chiming in, and this is why you do surveys, you get feedback from the members. When you go to the negotiations table, boom, this is what we want, these are our goals. And referring back to this exercise, I guess, you give all the other things that don't mean anything, and you get what you want. Lifeboat ethics, we use the analogy of, you have a lifeboat that holds 10 people, and 5 people are drowning beside you. You can't take 5 people on the boat, because if you take 5 people on the boat and you have 15, the whole boat sinks. And so basically the bottom line there is, you have to do what's good do what's best for the greater good. And that is, as I say, it's a tough one. It really is, but you gotta do what you gotta do. The agenda here, the pace, he said, if you're on your own terms, at your own pace, under your rules, if you will, then it just completely sets the tone. The next one is referring to the first concession. And his question was, who makes the first concession? The union or the school board? And the short of the long here is that if the school board makes the first concession, whoever makes the first concession will lose the most, and whoever does not will gain the most. And that is something that I definitely internalized here. You're not there to negotiate the board's proposal. You're there for ours. And what that means is, when you put an offer onto the table, you lay it out there, this is what we want, and they say, this is what we want. Well, I really don't care what you want. And he said it, kind of cracked me up, to be honest with you. He said, people in hell want ice water. and I gotta tell you, I never heard that before. But that's tough. People in hell do want ice water. They're not going to get it. And so the board says, we want this, that, and the other thing. Good. You're not going to get it. The answer is no. And the word no came up in conversation over and over and over again. Love trap refers to it as you're wrapping things up and like, this is so great, so positive, we really reach these agreements, and you start conceding things that you should not concede. And you get that, we have a positive relationship. Well, this is negotiations. I'm not trying to make friends here. I'm trying to do what's best for the greater good. If the district doesn't have money, fine, don't pay us. Then we want other compensations, and that will come up in day 3's notes, where you see about personal days, sick leave, compensation for leaving early, past practices. We don't negotiate those, as I mentioned earlier, but still, these are things that don't pay us, but give us what we deserve. Move the center. Basically what they're saying here is if you say, we want a 3% raise, and the district says, we'll give you a 1% raise, or we want 10 personal days, for example, and they say, no, we'll give you 1. As soon as they shift the center, when it gets moved in one direction too far, you can't get it back. And so this is why you have impasses, and we're not supposed to use the word impasse, but you get stuck in the mud is a better term. Because if you have an impasse, then that's just a no-no. It's a bullshit word, is what John said. And so you just have to keep that the center line where you're hoping to get to, reasonable. Be truthful, no bullshit. This refers to our members, because we have to have member support for the union. If they think that we're making decisions and going over their head, they don't trust us. Adequate justification. So they say, why didn't you get $1,000? Well, I got, $9,999. Well, why didn't you get that extra dollar? Well, this is why. And bottom line, it's open lines of communication. So you need to communicate to the members to make sure that they trust you. And that is my day 2 notes. Day 3 here. We're starting to get a little bit trickier. First thing says that after something like master's equivalency, they'll mention something in negotiations where it comes up in conversation. They put in a statement or whatever in the contract, and they kind of let it slide. And it's a sneaky trick, because they do it this contract, and next contract they tweak it, they add something, take something out, rework the language, you might overlook it. Next thing you know, it's gone. And so that's a problem. Planning periods. That one right there would be like a past practice. And this refers back to what we discussed earlier, where if it's, hey, we need you to come review your evaluation, let's say. And you say, can you come down to your planning period? Okay, fine. And next thing you know, it's, over your planning period, come down for this. Over your planning period, come down for this. And then that just rolled into a past practice. And right there, then they can intrude on your planning periods, and it sets a precedent, if you will. Grievances. If it's something comes up where the insurance company says we don't pay for it, and they say, you can't grieve that because it's about the insurance company. No, that's tough. That is on the school district, and the school district has to, you file the grievance with the district, and the district handles the insurance company. Completely irrelevant. We have nothing to do between us and the insurance company. It is the district and the insurance company. The ownership of the grievance. This one is referring to the fact that if you have a particular member and they say, I want to grieve it, and we say, you can, but it might not be good for the greater good. And what I mean by that is that if they take it to arbitration, it costs the members money. And so the grievance should be owned by the union rather than the individual. This one is just silly. They threw up an example that said, you can do this, and none of these things can be grieved by the union. They wrote in the contract, and since it's in the contract, you can't grieve it. And so what that does is it gives the district the green light to just do whatever they want to and under those circumstances, and say that you can't grieve it. And the grievance procedure, it really is the only teeth that we have to make our contract binding. Monetary, money in your pocket. And so what we looked at here is examples of you get money for covering someone's prep period, monetary incentives for not using any sick days, and homebound teaching. And these are all issues that I would like to look into regarding our particular teachers. Could we kind of slip that in the next negotiation, if you will? And if not, then that's one of those things. It's not a big ticket item that you say, you put it on the table and say, I want A, and these three right here are B, C, and D. And as soon as they say, fine, I'll give you A, but not B, C, and D, then fine, we'll sacrifice these. Because it does affect members, but not everyone. I talked about this before. The contract. They say that we want to open it. I was under the impression before that once you open the contract to negotiate one thing, contract's open. Apparently it's not the case. But it has to be in writing. And so you say we're going to open healthcare, talk about healthcare, that's it. Past practices, basically what this is talking about is if it happened every single year, who can I talk to? And so when it comes up later in conversation, and you say, well, who can maybe not testify is the word I'm looking for, but who can confirm that this happened before? This guy can. That woman can. And so if we keep a record of it, we're much more prepared if it ever comes up. Snow days is for our particular union, our local, I guess. The evaluation process here, since we're changing next year, if it's in our contract, I'm not sure what the language is referring to the evaluation process, but if it's in there, it's got to follow the contract, not the new process. Physicians, I want to look into this, because you can say, hey, our teachers want such and such doctor, they want Dr. Shortest to look at us, and he's not on the list. It's negotiable, and that's what it is. Jury duty, use the example of there's a woman that witnessed a hit and run, and she was subpoenaed to testify, and she had to use personal days. And so if it is jury duty versus civic duty, you just simply change the language in your contract, and I definitely need to follow up with that one. No past practices. You don't bring this up. I talked about it before. If you already have it, why would you negotiate that? Because you don't want to give it up. Class sizes, I want to look into as well. And prep period, civic duty I discussed. Minimum salary. Oh yes, this is the survey that I plan to send out to the teachers. The building reps will receive them, tally some numbers, and get back to us as a bargaining unit, or the bargaining committee, to see what issues are important. And bargaining attendance incentives. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what that is. Overall though, Mark, I have lots and lots of things that I need to get back to our members, get back to our bargaining committee so that we can make this whole contract negotiation go much more smoothly, and hopefully we'll come out on top. I'm sure we will. What John said, he's like, you go in there and you kick ass, and that's what I intend to do. Thank you.